Hello, Lizzie here, and today I'm going to show you how to make Junius. So this is the pattern that you'll see on my website, Junius is Latin for youthful, which I thought was lovely because of course that does look like a very youthful bag. Actually the technique we're going to learn here is fabric weaving, which is lovely. So the front of the pouch is actually all done with fabric weaving. The back is just plain, so it's not too much hard work because fabric weaving has got to be really accurate, but it's also very fun to do. And because it's scrap busting time this month, then this is another project using up all those scraps that you may well have lurking away in your cupboards. So that is Junius. So let's put the pattern to one side and bring in all my bits. Now to start off with, you're going to have lots and lots of strips of fabric. In the instructions it tells you quite clearly how many strips you need, what width they've got to be, what length they've got to be, but there is obviously a minimum. There really isn't a maximum because you can trim those off. So if I get my little bits and pieces out of the way there, the first thing you're going to start off with is a piece of iron-on stabilizer. So it's just single-sided iron-on stabilizer. It's cut to size. So this is the actual size of the actual pouch itself, which really helps us when it comes to actually cutting our fabric. So when we've laid all our weaving down, we need to obviously trim it back, and it helps that the actual the background, if you like, is actually to size. So it's lovely. I really enjoy doing this. And for this one, it's kind of more of a masculine one. I suppose that could be masculine. It's a bit flowery. So think about who this is going to be for. And actually, I think strips of faux leather would look absolutely gorgeous. So if you've got something where there's a selvage, just trim those off, because those first edges, I want you to put right close up to this edge here. So just make sure you've got your glue side facing up. Yeah, we're okay. Because obviously we're going to glue all of these down. So you're going to start off with one. Now this does take a little while, so I have got one that I've done earlier, but you're going to follow this principle. Okay, so every time you lay one down, you're going to use a clip or a pin to hold it in place. And again, get those neat edges right up against the edge of your iron-on stabilizer. And don't forget it's a single-sided, and just keep lining them up, keep them neat. And this is the trick, I suppose, with fabric weaving. The actual, you can just see that's the right length. I measured it just purposefully. The idea with fabric weaving is that it's the accuracy. It's how they sit together like a checkerboard effect. They've got to be really good, actually. But it's worth taking the time. So again, just get those straight edges going all the way along. So I'm not going to do all of this. You'll all be asleep by the time I've done it. But I'll show you the principles of it. And of course you could think about shading. So on the one that I've actually done, I've got like dark going to light. So you might want to think about that. You might only want to use two colours. I've just used tons and tons of scraps here because the strip lengths you need aren't very big. So I'll do one more just so you can see what it looks like. Now that's not a straight edge, neither is that. Let's just trim that away. In fact, it's not even been ironed very well. But let's pop it down here. Let's sack the person that ironed, that was me. So let's just pop this one in here. So let's just assume that's the last one, okay? So if I hold this up, you'll be able to see what that looks like. If I hold it to this camera here, you'll be able to see that that's my straight edge. I've got the shiny side up, which is the glue side up. And I know it's difficult for you to see on this ironing mat here, but there's the edge. And you can see that all my straight edges are really well in line there. And all of those fabrics are sitting very neatly together. Okay, so the next stage, I'll just do one or two of these. So pick up your next piece of fabric. And don't forget, it's cut to size, and you're actually iron the raw edges to the middle of the back. So the actual strips themselves are beautifully neat. So what you're going to do is a definite technique here. You're going to lift every other one with the clips on. We don't want to move those clips just at the moment. So each one of these is lifted and you'll carry on to the end. And then you're popping your strip over the top. Now I know just visually that's not going to fit, but what I want it to do is sit in the right place to give me a head start. So just bring those layers back over. And now all I'm going to do, I'm going to be really brave, take my clips out, holding everything down, you can see with my hand. And then I'm just going to move this along. I'm going to kind of hold it together. So that's absolutely gorgeous. And then again, I'm going to put my clips back in. So don't stint on this part. This is probably the bit that's probably the most important thing, because you're getting all your strips absolutely all straight and in line with each other. So again, let's get my clips on there and hold them in place. And that last one there we go. So there's the first strip done. So the next strip, you're lifting the second one along. So where we lifted this one, let me hold that up so you can see, that was the first one we lifted, that one, and that one. And now we're going to lift the second one. So we're going to flip it over. And like I say, if it's too long, don't worry, don't trim it off until the very end. And flip that over, unless it's really long, and then you could use that strip on another piece of your weaving. So there's our second row now going to be put down. And again, all you're going to do is place this over the top. Really neatly, keep everything in line, keep patting them down, keep placing them, keep, you know, just making sure that they're all really nested well together. And there we are. So there's 2 rows down. So let's just hold that up here so you can see how that looks. So this was our first row and this is our second row, and you just continue like that until your whole piece is covered. And if you just stay right there, I'm going to show you that the one that I did that we're going to actually make the pouch from, and that's this piece here. And I've trimmed it to size, and you'll be able to see now exactly what that looks like. So you can see from here, I'm going from the dark corner here and I'm just coming across here to light. So you might want to place your pieces down and then decide maybe you want to move 1 or 2. Everything is just absolutely perfect. And I've just put a pop of yellow in there as well, just to sort of bring it to life, which I think is absolutely gorgeous. So that's what it looks like when it's all trimmed. And I've trimmed it to the size of my stabilizer. So my stabilizer is on the back already, and that's actually glued the whole thing together. So when you've done your weaving and you've completed the whole piece, and you've got tails all over the place, trim it to size. Well, iron it first. Get your iron on this, absolutely iron it, hold your iron on it, don't do this, you'll move all those lovely pieces of weaving. Now obviously some of the edges won't glue down to anything because they're sitting on top of each other, but the majority of it will. And then once you've got it glued one side, then take it over, and obviously you can pop your iron on there and really glue it down, and that will actually make your piece of fabric. It's a really, really lovely technique, and you can make so many different things just making that piece of fabric, and it's all been using your scraps, which is wonderful. So let's get our little tester piece out of the way. There we go. That's my next project now, isn't it? So after we've done that, we're ready to actually start constructing the pouch itself. Now, I'm just going to pop that to one side for the moment because I want to do the zip. Now, the zip comes in 2 parts. It's like a little panel. So you've got one piece which is stabilised. So this has got a nice medium weight stabiliser on. I always use the same one. I'm pretty boring, but I love it. And then the other half isn't stabilised. It's just as is. And I've folded both pieces over by 1/4 inch both ends. Okay, so both ends on both pieces are folded over 1/4 inch. So we've got 2 of those to go either side of the zip. So that's lovely. I've also got zip tabs as well. But if you notice on this pouch, I've actually extended the zip out, so it kind of opens up because it's quite a wide, because we've got that little extra piece at the side there. It's like a sort of a gusset that we haven't actually put a gusset in, but we've kind of made it, so that's part of the pattern. And I've made it so it extends. I quite like it because it gives me something to get hold of and pull the zip all the way across. It looks good, doesn't it? And that's what we're going to create next. We're going to make these lovely stands there to put our zip in. So let's pop that back there. So I'll bring the machine in. I've already got my zipper foot on. There's not much stitching in this, you'll be surprised. And I've got my long zip. Now in the instructions I've said the length of the zip, and I've made it really quite long, longer than you need, probably longer than I've got here. But that's deliberate because we do want to have at least a couple of inches either end to extend that out. So it's deliberate. So let me just move my zipper out of the way. In fact, let's take it out the other end. If you can keep it closed, it's better. So all I'm going to do now is I'm kind of going to find the centre of this zip. It's not crucial, but it just makes sure, and I'm just going to put the tiny little nick in it. Just make sure that we get our zip tabs in the right place. So there's two little nicks out of my zip. I don't know if you can see that there, but I've got two little V's there. And all I'm going to do is line up my zip tabs, my zip stands. So I'm going to find the middle again of that, and I'm just going to eyeball that. So I'm putting that zip panel right in the centre, and I'm going to start one end and go straight across. So I'm doing right sides. If I show you here, it's probably much easier. So I'm doing right sides together. So there's my zipper teeth there, and I'm doing right sides together. That's the top part of my zip, and the stabilised part wants to go on the right side, not the wrong side. And then the other half that's not stabilised, I'm just going to tuck underneath. Again, right sides to the back of the zip. That's the best way I can describe it. So you're making a zip sandwich just like you normally would, and your zip just goes in the centre there. So we're going to stitch from there down to the end of the zip stand. But mainly you're going to get those lined up. That's the main thing, is getting those folded edges that you've done lined up as best you can, So pop that under the machine, a little back stitch, and then just go all the way along your piece. And your zipper foot won't allow you to sort of jump over the teeth. You mustn't worry about catching the teeth of your zip. You'd be very unlucky if you did that. I don't think I've ever done it in nearly 60 years of sewing. So just as you come to the end, make sure that both of those zip stands have their 1/4 inch folded back, so it's nice and neat. And there is our zip installed. There we go. And it wants to fight you a little bit because it's got stabiliser on it. So there's one half. Now I'm going to top stitch that together, so that's really neat. I'm going to start at one end. I'm going to bring my 1/4 inch seams that I've folded over together, and that's where I'm going to start stitching. So again, I'm making a little sandwich. So bring those raw edges together of your zip stands and just make sure that they are nice and neat. I haven't pressed this. You might want to press it so they're really super neat. I'm just bringing my raw edges together and making sure that they're sitting nicely. Top stitching all the way along. I've got a rogue thread there, and I'm going to just snip that off. And then when you come up to the other end, make sure those 1/4 inches that you've folded over are sitting on top of each other. And again, you might want to pin this so it's absolutely easier for you to stitch, of course. So coming up to the end there, I'm just going to turn that, and now I'm coming down those folded edges. Little back stitch to hold. So there's one zip stand installed. You can see what that looks like, and on the back it looks absolutely the same. There's no difference between the two. So we're going to repeat that. So on the other side, just make sure you've got the right side facing you. The piece that you're going to stitch the stand is the one with the interfacing facing you, and the one that doesn't have interfacing goes underneath. Get those folded edges beautifully on top of each other, and pin this, glue this, use your quilter's tape, anything to hold those together if you're not sure. And then if you've got the needle down facility, I always say this, please use it, because it's like your third hand. So again, just coming down that piece there, all the way along through all those layers. So we're actually stitching the zip stand and the zip. And all we're doing is bringing those folded edges together. I just want to move that slightly. There we go. Bring the zip in along as well. There we go. Like I say, you might want to use your quilting clips. And I know I haven't caught that folded piece, so I'm just going to just catch that. There we go. Super job. So now you're going to do exactly the same as what you did before. You're bringing the raw edge of the back zip stand and the front zip stand together. So you're going to stitch the folded edges together first of the where you folded that 1/4 of an inch. I have to say the instructions, the written instructions are brilliant. The pictures are amazing. So you'll be able to see straight away. If you're not quite sure what's she talking about, go and have a look at the pictures, because there's pictures of every single step of the way. So just top stitch again, bring those raw edges together. You just want to make sure that your zip stands aren't folded over too much. Bring those folds together at the end there. And there we are, got a rogue thread. Even with a cutter on my machine, I get rogue threads. There we go, which is perhaps a good thing. So just snip those away. So that's what it should look like now. So you've got your zip going all the way down the centre and your zip stands actually in place and all very, very neat. So the next thing we're going to do So a quick mention about my Gold Club. If you haven't joined already, there's no time like the present. Just pop to my website, find the link that says Gold Members Sign Up here, and then you have access to my Facebook weekly events, which is absolutely amazing. My girls love it. And of course you get the free patterns as well. So if you want more information, there is actually a video on YouTube that you can have a little look at. Let's just bring our pieces in. We have a back and a front. Oh, there's our back there. Now I've used a stabiliser on this. I haven't used a wadding. I thought it might be too much for a little pouch like this, so it's up to you. You could use wadding if you want to, but you're definitely going to use the iron-on stabiliser to actually put your weaving together. So the next thing we need to do is actually install our zip into our bag. So I'll do the back first. So again, you need to find the centre. Now with this particular bag, I want the darker fabrics at the bottom. So this is going to be my top. And all you're going to do is fold that in half. Find your centre. Just take a little nick out of it, just enough to see. You don't need a great chunk. Just a little tiny V there. And you're going to do the same. Well, we've already done it on the zip, but you're going to do the same with your panels. So just fold them in half. Find the centre and just a tiny little nick. I mean, you're going to do pretty much 1/4 inch seam allowance. I will say pretty much, just in case you get carried away or you don't do enough. And then do both sides, because we're going to put the bag front on as well. Pop your scissors in there. I'm just getting my fabric lined up. And again, a little nick out of it, not much. I've got little bits everywhere now. So what we're going to do is actually line this up and pop this into our bag. So don't forget, right sides together. So flip that over, and this is where we could use some clips just to hold it together. That'd be good. It's not very often I'm good, especially with my clips. So just bring your V's together. So find your V's that you just cut and use your clips just to hold all of those in place. What you want to do is make sure that each end is the same. So it's about 3/4 of an inch gap at the end. So if I hold that up to the camera, I'll hold it here as well, you can see that our zip stands finish 3/4 of an inch from the raw edges there, which is obviously intentional. So all we're going to do now is stitch from one side to the other side, just with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I think you'll find this a really easy make, although the weaving will take you a couple of hours maybe. The rest of it won't. And I've still got my zipper foot on, So I'm going to use the 1/4 inch markings on my machine to judge my 1/4 inch seam allowance. So if you've used pins, you know what I'm going to say. Do not stitch over your pins. And I'm really loving this bag. So there's one. So now we've got to do the front. So it's exactly the same. So you're going to fold your piece in half. Now I want to make sure I have the dark at the bottom. So don't forget I said to you I wanted the dark at the bottom and then going up to here. So I'm just going to bring those together. Make sure again, just checking centre of that. Just take a little nick out. You can measure it if you want, but I find a little nick out of the fabric is just enough. Now before we actually stitch this together, we must actually cut our boxy corners. So I must remember to do that. So right sides together to hold that together. And like I said, 3/4 of an inch from each end, and that's where you start and stop. And don't forget also that some of those pieces of weaving are not glued down. So you just want to be careful that you don't actually forget to stitch them all. They get sort of tucked out of the way. Just make sure that everything is in place. Again, I'm using the guide on my machine. Little back stitch. So I'm going to check my layers. I think everything's perfectly fine under there. And just guide this through. And of course you've got a lot more layers going on. But it's fine, it's not that many. So there we are. So there is our zip installed. So if I show you that, you can see what that looks like. It looks amazing, doesn't it? Right, so now we need to cut our boxy bottoms. So really, really easy. I just take an inch off. So I bring my ruler in, I find the 1 inch mark, which is easy with the weaving because it's almost like it's the weaving that you're, you know, the inch that you're taking off. So I'll do it all 4 corners. I've already done it for my lining. You'll see when I get to that point. And again, here and here. So I'm just going to cut that by hand. And you could do that obviously before you install the zip. It's entirely up to you. But at some point, they need to be cut off. So, cut those away. And the only reason why I don't include that is because it saves you having a pattern piece. So instead of a pattern piece, I just tell you the actual dimensions of the bag and then you just cut those inch squares away. So don't forget you've got a lot of loose edges here. And if you wanted to, you could stay stitch the sides of the bag. So there we are, so there's our corners cut off. So what we're going to do now is stitch, and we're going to stitch at right sides together. We're going to stitch all the way along here, right across the top here and down here. Just make sure that your zips are out of the way and you're doing raw edges together, okay? You don't want to get that zip in the way, you don't want to stitch the zip stands or anything like that. It's just literally the raw edges of the bag. 1/4 of an inch. Just get those out of the way and just come all the way up. Across the bottom. Again, be aware that you've got loose pieces here. So, like I said, you might want to stay stitch those. I think it's fine. They will lay flat, but it's just being aware of it. All the way across. And then up the other side. Like I was saying, 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Just be aware of all your pieces. Just make sure they haven't come back on them. Yeah, they fold back on themselves. There we go. So all we need to do now is open that zip up, which is where there. Just tuck it all the way through. I mean, opening it before you do this is always a good idea. Just push that along. There we go. It's there. It's just me being fiddly. That's it. There we go. And open it before, perhaps, when you stitch your sides together. But turn it through. Oh no, we've got to do the boxy bottoms. So just don't forget, you're going to nest those seams. So where the bottom goes one way, the sides are going to go the other. So we'll just quickly stitch those together. Just make sure your seams are lying beautifully nested. So you're just going to stitch 1/4 of an inch across that raw edge there. And the same on the other side. Just make sure your bottom seam goes the same way. So if it's going over to the right, then just make sure when you do the second corner, it's also going over to the right. So your sides are going to the left. And just make sure also that all your gorgeous weaving is sitting in the right place. You might want to check it and pin it. Okay. So that's our bag made. I'm going to turn it through so you can see. But we need to do the zip tabs on the end of the zip. And I'll do that next, and then we'll put the lining in and then it's done. It's just such an easy make, really. Like I say, the kind of novelty factor of this is the fabulous weaving that you're going to do. There we go. Let's get it straight for you. There we go. And just get your zip end out. There we go. Wants to sit inside. And of course it'll need a good press like everything else. So there's the pouch actually made up. But we need to cut these ends off. So from the edge, so the actual zip stands finish here. So from the edge of your bag or to the zip stands there, you've got about 1/2 inch there. So I want to come out a good 2 inches. So I'm just going to measure that. I'm not going to measure it with a pen. I'm going to measure it and then cut it. Just lay that on my mat. So a good 2 inches from the edge. So I'm going to take it to there and just cut. Flip it over. Now don't forget, this one is actually open. Now we need to stitch that. We'll do that in just a second. And then, so from there, 2 inches and cut. You might want to use your kitchen scissors to cut through. It's nylon, it's fine. So before we put those tabs on, I'm just going to stitch my 2 ends together, and you just literally place them as close as you can get them underneath the foot of your machine. Put a stitch in and then just stitch across. Now my fingers are very near the needle, so you might want to use maybe a quick unpick, something like that, to actually guide all that through. So just cut my little tails off there. So it just helps when you put your zip tabs on if that end is nicely closed up. And then I'm not going to zip it right across, but you can see what that's going to look like with the ends. I think it looks great. So with the ends, I tell you the sizes of the tabs that you're going to do. You're going to fold them, the raw edges to the middle, and then you're going to fold those raw edges top and bottom to the middle as well. And you kind of make a 1 inch little cube, and it's really tiny, so you might want to glue this so it's really secure. And then with your zip, you're just going to tuck that in 1/4 of an inch, and then you're just going to fold over and literally just stitch across. Now, like I say, you might want to use your quilting tape or your glue just to hold that in place, or a clip will be fine. It's just a little bit fiddly just to keep that zip in place, especially I haven't got my big table here, so it's not supported. So this is the time to get your big table out and use it to your advantage. So that tab now I'm just going to stitch across, and you could make this a boxy sort of tab. I don't think I did with this. No, I just went straight across. So there's one done. Let's just snip that end off there. So let's do the other one. So fold that edge in, put your zip end over the top by 1/4 inch, fold the other side in, bring it over, make a little zip sandwich again, and then just pop it under the machine. If you can get your needle in to hold it, then you're kind of winning then. So the sooner you can do that, and then if you want to, you can fiddle about to make sure it's sitting in the right place, and I'm happy with all of that. And just take your time, don't forget you're going over those zip teeth again. So just take that little thread off there. So that's our zip tabs in place, which is looking absolutely glorious. So now we've got that facility to hold the ends and move that right across. But the next thing we need to do is actually put the lining in. Now with the lining, I've actually completed that already, so it matches my zip tabs. So if you see, there's some nice black fabric, and I've matched the lining. So obviously we want to see that the right side goes into the bag, and we have to think a little bit about this. So it's always right sides together. So I'm just turning my lining through, so I'm seeing the wrong side of my lining. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to fold this down. When you first do this, it doesn't make any sense at all, but you fold this down so you forget about the fact you've got a zip, okay? So you've got the raw edges now folded down, okay? Like that. And the next is super simple. You're popping your bag inside your lining. You can do it this other way around, but this is the way that I always do this. Pop your zip inside. Now I've left a turning gap. I haven't forgotten. Tuck your zip in, make sure your zip goes inside. And then, like all bags, pouches, just line up those side seams. Don't worry about anything else. Just get those side seams lined up and nest those seams if you can. Get a clip in there just to hold it together. So I will use clips when necessary. And then again on this side, just clip them together. And then your bag and your lining should absolutely nest together beautifully like that. So your bag is inside, your lining is on the outside. So now we're just going to stitch those two layers together. So I'll just start in the middle. If you've got a free arm facility, I don't on this machine, but if you have a free arm facility, now is the time to use it, because you're going to tuck your bag in. 1/4 inch seam allowance. I've started right in the centre because that's a nice edge with no clips or anything to get in my way. And then you're literally stitching your main bag and your lining together. Remove clips or pins as you go. So the ends where the zips are going to be super neat. Just keep an eye on your zip stands. Make sure you keep to that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Keep everything lined up beautifully. And just whiz along. If when you put these two together and your lining is not the same size as your bag, our cutting is not always the best, is it? Then just restitch those seams just to make that adjustment. It's fine. If you're going to gift it, obviously you want to make it really nice. So there we are. So I've gone all the way around. Let's move that out the way. So now we've got all our layers together. So all I'm going to do is turn it through. Now this will need a nice press, because we haven't pressed anything yet, have we? Well, apart from the weaving. And just work it through, work it through, work it through. There we go. So make sure your corners are still lovely and sharp. And then obviously we need to stitch this little bit here. So I'll just pull my corners out. So I stitched about 1 inch in from the boxy bottom and just pull those seams together, and that always gives you a lovely 1/4 inch. And just quickly stitch that up so it's nice and finished. So you're just going to go straight across there. Again, you might want to press this. You might want to hand stitch it, you might want to glue it. So then all you're going to do is tuck your lining inside. And I must admit that this looks rather stylish. So just work your lining in, and by pressing it where the zip is, you get a lovely crisp edge. It does make a huge difference. There we go. So that is our pouch made. This is Junius, lovely name. There we go. And I really like it. I like how the black fabric complements, and the whole thing complements each other, doesn't it? All the black fabric, the weaving. And then of course, because we've kind of made a faux gusset here, I need to trim a couple of stitches, threads there. We've made a faux gusset, that zip sits beautifully, and it just wants to sit nicely over the top. So once that's pressed, that'll look gorgeous. I'm going to fiddle about with it. I'm showing you the back. There's the front. So this is Junius, and I have to say this was one of my free patterns for my Gold Club members. I don't know if you've heard of me talking about my Gold Club, but it's incredibly popular with the ladies and gents that actually belong to it. And every month they get 3 free patterns as part of their membership, and Junius is one of them. And so if you pop along to my website, lizzycurtis.com, you'll be able to read all the reviews, you'll be able to see what people have said, and they are real people with real reviews. I haven't edited them in any way, and we have such fun. And every week we have a Facebook Live event where we talk about the patterns that we will have made. We also have guests coming along and doing a once a month tutorial on a nice little project, which is again free to the club members. So it's a lovely place to be. So there we are. So there's Junius. I hope you absolutely love it, and I hope you make loads.